Yo, what's up YouTube? This is Ninjahype. Today, we're also making a video about a shark hoodie, and this is the very classic yellow camo shark hoodie. This one, from its release until now, should have been out for years. Over the years, this first camo has always been very popular and a hot seller, and it's like this every year. I remember when we first started our website, this was one of our main products, and even until this year, every day there are still many orders with many new young friends purchasing this hoodie. Because I've never really done a proper color comparison, let's take a look today. On my left is the premium Ninjahype version, and on my right is the original, exclusive, and authentic retail version that I carefully and thoughtfully purchased from StockX. Now, in a moment, I will lay them flat on the table to show you the details. So now I'll bring it closer, and you can see that the camouflage shark face is still very well made. And at the same time, I also purchased a version from Dhgate, which I bought for dollars to my collection. Purchased from Dhgate for a reasonable price, which was quite affordable, and I was quite satisfied with the purchase. And as usual, you can also check out the comparisons of shark hoodies I've done in previous episodes, where each episode features a Dhgate hoodie. Actually, the issues with Dhgate hoodies are pretty much the same for each one. Overall, it's about the stitching of the shark mouth, the mouth not being large enough, and the spacing of the eyes. The problems are actually the same because I believe they might all come from the same factory. Alright, let's place them on the table next and give you a detailed comparison. Alright, next we'll lay them flat on the table. From left to right, we have the Dhgate version, this one is the StockX version, and this one is the Ninjahype version. Let's take a look at them one by one. Let's start with the Dhgate version. We'll begin with the less favorable aspects, so later we can see where the good points are. First, look at this. These messy, loose threads. It was like this when I just took it out. They probably didn't do a good job with quality control at the factory. And then look at the stitching on the shark's mouth. In some places there are 2 lines, and sometimes there's just 1 line. But actually, if the workmanship is good, there's no need to have 2 lines. Right? This clearly shows that when it was being sewn, the worker made a mistake. Because if we look at the middle one, the same middle model of the authentic product, since its workmanship is good enough, it doesn't need 2 lines of stitching. It's all single lines. If you see 2 lines, for instance, then it must be a fake product. It must be incorrect, isn't it, right? Look at this single line. This is the retail authentic version from StockX. Additionally, speaking of the teeth, the shark teeth part, this is very obvious. This part here, you see if I lay this face flat, the teeth, theoretically, this red part, the tongue, should extend further down, right? You see the authentic shark, the StockX version, this curve comes down like this, and it has an arc all the way to this part, then it ends here, right? As for the rest, this side is missing a small part, missing a small section. Theoretically, it should extend a bit further down. This is obviously a fake at first glance. Additionally, let's look at the size of this shark's mouth. As you can clearly see, the size comparison is quite evident. In comparison, this shark's mouth is a bit smaller, right? Moreover, as you might notice again, that the curve itself is also done incorrectly. The size of these teeth themselves, along with stitching of these teeth together, and even extension of tongue are all off. Currently, these are the 3 errors. Let's continue to take a look. As I mentioned in my previous videos, the stitching position on the shark's mouth is also quite particular. However, because every year new versions of the shark are released, like in 2024 and 2023, they will reissue a batch. I'm talking about the official website, which will reissue a batch of new stock. The stitching position on some of these shark mouths is actually different. Anyway, I'll take this one as an example. This one should be the 2024 or 2023 version. In this version, the stitching goes through the right side of the left tooth, and the right stitching goes through the middle of the tooth. Then, coincidentally, the stitching below also goes through the middle of the 2 teeth. This is actually a very detailed aspect, and if you're not paying attention, most people might not notice it. Now let's look at the Dhgate version. The teeth don't go through the middle, right? This is also a mess, completely overlooked. I guess they just don't have this concept, right? Let's talk about the Ninjahype version. In this way, using the middle as a reference point, there will be a very clear contrast. Alright, next let's start with the teeth part. Regarding the stitching issue, we just mentioned with the Dhgate, the version on Ninjahype is very correct, right? A single line of stitching, and then there's the shape of the teeth, the size of the shark mouth. When compared like this, the only slight flaw with Ninjahype is that the curve might be made a bit too wide, but the size is not an issue, right? The size is exactly the same, and the extension of the shark mouth is also in alignment with what you would expect from a genuine product, extending to this part, right? Yes, they all extend down like this, with this curvature of extension. Next, looking at the spacing of the teeth, the Ninjahype version should also match the genuine product. The tooth on the left crosses from the right, and the seam on the right is slightly crooked, but it shouldn't be a big issue as they all pass through the tooth seam. Ultimately, the main thing is that the stitching should at least be relatively neat, right? We need to make it a bit more tidy, so that the quality doesn't appear too poor. Next, let's look at the embroidery part of the WGM, which is also very important because all the fans of the Shark Hoodie should pay attention to this. As I mentioned in my previous videos, every time the Dhgate version has stitching, the sewing is always a mess, right? They would sew the stitching over the embroidery, but the correct version doesn't do that at all. In the correct version, this edge part should be exposed, right? The thread should definitely not be sewn over the embroidery because this part is a very distinctive feature and it should be exposed. You see the stitching in the middle is completely sewn over the embroidery, right? As I mentioned in my previous videos, it's the same issue, isn't it? The authentic product wouldn't have this problem. Let's look at this Ninjahype, compare Ninjahype and authentic product. For these two, look at the white blank part on the edge. The stitching along the edge is very neat, right? This is the Ninjahype version. Very clean, very neat. Next, let's look at the fabric. The fabric has a fleece lining, while the authentic product uses terry cotton with a bit of added fleece. Now for this Ninjahype version, the added fleece is much thicker, making it more suitable for wearing in winter, as it is very warm. Let's scroll down and take a look at the wash label. This wash label is from the authentic version, the StockX version, made in Japan. Note that in the 2021 or 2022 versions, the golden monkey label has this tree stitching on it. So the Ninjahype version should also use the same. For the Ninjahype Star version, due to the first camo issue I mentioned earlier, it still uses the old design without the tree stitching, because versions before 2010 and 2020 were like this, with the old golden embroidery. You can see the difference between the two is quite significant, isn't it? This one has gold thread embroidery, which is a very obvious feature of first camo. This indicates that these two, when you compare the tags, are from different batches, meaning they are versions from different years. Both are correct, so this comparison is just for reference. It doesn't mean one is right and the other is wrong. It's just because they are sharks from different eras, and wearing them is perfectly fine.